All right, y'all. Something weird is happening right now. DeSantis is tanking. His approval or his poll numbers are tanking against Donald Trump. This article says DeSantis looks to revamp strategy amid signs of political strain. So really interesting stuff to look at here. It says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is recalibrating his strategy and messaging amid signs his presidential ambitions may be faltering before his campaign even gets off the ground. DeSantis began the year with clear momentum in the nascent GOP presidential primary, topping former President Trump in head-to-head polling and drawing unparalleled interest from Republican voters and operatives eager to see a fresh face at the helm of the party. But there are signs that his momentum may be stalling. He's faced weeks of relentless attacks from Trump and his allies. Fellow Republicans have criticized him for dubbing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, quote, a territorial dispute, and some recent polls have shown his support in hypothetical GOP primary slipping. Quote, I think for all the fanfare about DeSantis, there's still a lot of stuff he needs to work on, said one Republican strategist who plans to back the Florida governor in 2024 primary if he runs. That's normal when you're exploring this kind of thing, but I think he needs to rethink things a little bit. To some degree, that already appears to be happening. In an interview this week with British television personality Piers Morgan, DeSantis took several swipes at Trump, raising questions about the former president's character and brushing off one of Trump's nicknames for him, Ron DeSanctimonious. The comments were some of his sharpest criticism of Trump yet, signaling a new willingness by the Florida governor to confront his one-time political benefactor more directly. So basically, he's already trying to, change what his strategy is. His strategy originally was kind of like a don't respond kind of strategy, which I thought was a really good strategy. Like just kind of let him talk and yap, kind of the basement strategy, although obviously the basement strategy is typically for generals, right? They're not for primary. So the primary is a weird thing. Donald Trump was able to win in 2016, the primary specifically, because there was a lot of infighting in the Republican Party, especially with the Tea Party that was sort of bubbling under the surface. And it was kind of covered up and it came out where there's this huge splintered race. Donald Trump was able to corner a certain market that gave him a plurality, not a majority, but in a primary, in a splintered primary, you only need a plurality to emerge victorious. You don't need a majority. So he was able to monopolize that area where you're saying, hey, we're going to ban Muslims or, Mexicans are rapists and just crazy shit like that, right? Nobody else was willing to say any of that stuff. And so he was the only one occupying that space. And the goal of a splintered primary is always to occupy as much of like a certain area as you can. You don't want to share your airspace with anyone else because then you get split off. And typically the elites in the party, like we saw with the Democratic Party in 2016, where the elites completely cleared out the field. They even cleared out Joe Biden, which is honestly scary that Hillary had that much power over the party. But with the Republicans, they were unable to, the elites, the party elites, the senators, the congressmen, the media people, the donors, they weren't able to come around one person. So in my opinion, if DeSantis is he's the one opponent against Trump, he will emerge victorious for sure. If it's a splintered primary, Donald Trump wins for sure. Because Donald Trump has that like 30% plurality that will get him the win. Whereas DeSantis will be able to win if it's just him. But DeSantis can't beat him. If it's another 16 candidate race like it was in 2016, DeSantis has no chance. But if it's a 1v1, he can definitely win. Now, these poll numbers are honestly, we're so far away from the primary, it's honestly meaningless. To the effect that he even had a strategy, I don't even know. I guess it would have to be the no response strategy, right? And so what he's trying to do now is he's trying to respond back. I'm not super convinced that the respond back strategy is really going to work, though, to be honest with you. I'm not so convinced that like responding to them. I don't think Ron DeSantis has any good responses. And Trump did this weird thing where like he tried positioning himself as like, he's doing multiple things. But one of the things he seemed to be trying to do is trying to position himself as the more mainstream candidate than DeSantis. I don't know if you guys remember, he made that comment about like Joe Biden and whatever during the State of the Union, like praising them or whatever. I think DeSantis is going really hardcore right now with all the all the fascist stuff he's doing with the schools and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that that's really going to work so well outside of Florida. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to end up panning out. Ultimately, I did think that, I think for him, he has to win behind the scenes. They call it the invisible primary. It's called the invisible primary in political science. It's like, that year before the primary where people go to basically lobby big donors and stuff to support them. if he can figure out a way to basically get it so that nobody else runs, at least nobody's serious, but really ideally nobody, but there's already people running. But that would be the way. But that's not going to be possible because the Republicans hate each other and they're super fractured. They have no chance. I think there's no way Trump wins the general election. He's way too far gone. The one weird thing is the media seems to be picking up coverage of him for some reason. He's starting to get way more coverage all of a sudden, which is really bad. The media should just not cover him. If the media doesn't cover him, he's done so. He can't win. But then the question becomes, who would be easier opponent for Joe Biden to beat, DeSantis or Trump? And I would have to say it's Trump, I think, is the easier candidate. There's no way that Trump wins again. I don't even know if as a president won non-consecutive terms, actually. I should know that. But there's no way that he would win because he only has a small plurality. He only has a plurality of voters. He's way too far gone. And it was like a perfect storm for him to win in 2016. And then in 2020, it came close, but that's because of the incumbency advantage. If you're already president and the economy was doing well, like, you're going to win. But the economy was doing well for 3 years, so he was definitely going to win, except in the fourth and final year of his presidency, COVID hit, destroyed the economy. He failed to be a leader, of course. He could have won if he just had been a leader, but he wasn't, obviously, because he's incompetent, right? But he would have won easily. Like, that incumbency advantage of a good economy as an incumbent president is hard to lose. So, that's why it was so close. If you're wondering, like, oh, but he was so close to winning. Yeah, because of the incumbency advantage. And then all the stuff that happened afterwards makes it so it's basically impossible for him to actually be able to win. So pretty much I'm just thinking that, DeSantis, I think, will be only able to win if he's able to lock down the primary somehow. It's the only way. If he can get people not to run, if the Republican elites can come around someone, around DeSantis, that is, he can win. But I don't really know what his strategy could be here. I don't know if responding is really all that great of a strategy, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I know that Trump's idea here is, like, let me try to maim DeSantis as much as possible before the race even starts. That's his plan right now. But I'm not so certain. Like, do you want to announce your run ASAP? Like, I'm not really sure. I don't really know, to be honest with you. It's a tough call on this one. I also wouldn't overreact to the polls right now. And he's only down, I don't know, 12 points or something. It's like, 41-27. So it's not like he's getting, demolished. So I think he's fine right now. I think we're just overreacting to polls.